There were only three countries in history, countries that controlled the world's money, countries that could finance any war, countries that answered to no one. They all made the same mistake. They all collapsed in the exact same order. And now, something strange is happening. The United States is repeating those same mistakes, step by step, decision by decision. The most frightening part? We already know how this story ends, but most people never understand how empires actually die. Because empires don't collapse the way we imagine. They don't fall to invasion. They don't fall to a final battle. They don't fall in flames on a single day. They collapse quietly, slowly, and then all at once. At first, everything still looks normal. Money still works. Markets are still open. The military still looks powerful. The government still makes promises. And that's exactly why no one panics. But beneath the surface, the foundation is cracking. Every empire eventually reaches a point where it tries to be everywhere at the same time. More borders, more bases, more enemies, more promises. And history shows something very clearly. That has never been sustainable. Spain was the first global empire to learn this lesson. In the 1500s, Spanish ships were bringing home enormous amounts of silver and gold from the Americas. So much wealth that Spain effectively controlled the money supply of Europe. Everyone wanted Spanish silver. Merchants, kings, bankers. And Spain believed that controlling money meant controlling reality. They believed money could replace production. Why build ships when you can buy them? Why grow food when silver keeps arriving? Why innovate when the world already depends on you? At the same time, Spain was fighting wars everywhere. Against the Ottoman Empire, against France, against England, against the Dutch, across Europe, across the Americas, across Asia. By the late 1500s, nearly half of Spain's revenue went directly to the military. And it still wasn't enough. So they did what failing empires always do. They debased the currency. Silver coins were quietly mixed with copper. The number on the coin stayed the same, but the real value collapsed. Inflation exploded. Trust evaporated. And here's the part most people miss. Spain stopped producing. Not slowly, not accidentally. They chose not to. Work was seen as beneath the elite. Manufacturing declined. Agriculture stagnated. Spain imported everything: food, clothing, weapons, ships. Silver flowed in and flowed straight back out. The empire looked rich from the outside, but inside it was hollow. Within decades, Spain declared bankruptcy again and again. Crime rose. Begging filled the streets. Productive citizens left. On paper, the empire still existed. In reality, it was already dead. 300 years later, history repeated itself. This time, the empire was Britain. At its peak, Britain ruled a quarter of the world. The sun never set on British territory. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. London was the financial center of the planet. Trade moved through British banks. Insurance flowed through British institutions. Global contracts were written in pounds. Britain didn't just control territory, it controlled the system. And Britain believed its power was permanent. That belief mattered, because it shaped every decision that followed. But maintaining an empire across 6 continents is expensive. Very expensive. Empires don't just cost money in war. They cost money every single day. Ships must be built, ports defended, trade routes protected, rebellions suppressed. By the early 1900s, Britain had military commitments everywhere. India, Africa, the Middle East, Asia, the oceans. The empire required constant force just to remain still. And then the world changed. When World War I began, Britain faced a choice: stay out and risk losing dominance, or fight to preserve the global order they already controlled. They chose to fight. They told themselves it would be short, it would be manageable. The empire could afford it. They were wrong. The war dragged on. Costs exploded. Borrowing replaced income. Britain won the war and bankrupted itself doing it. By the end of the war, Britain had gone from the world's creditor to one of its largest debtors, mostly to the United States. This was a turning point, because for the first time, the empire that set the rules owed money to someone else. But Britain refused to accept what that meant. They tried to pretend nothing had changed. They defended the value of the pound. They borrowed more money. They cut where they could and promised the rest would fix itself. They told themselves one more recovery would restore balance. It never did. Instead, the economy weakened. Industry struggled. Unemployment rose, and the pressure didn't disappear. Then came World War II, another existential threat, another decision: fight again or lose everything. They fought, they won, and they destroyed what was left of their financial foundation. Another victory, another wave of debt. This time, there was no illusion left. After the war, reality became unavoidable. Britain could no longer afford its empire, not militarily, not financially, not politically. The costs were too high, the returns were too low, and one by one, the pillars fell. India was gone, the crown jewel of the empire. Africa followed, the Middle East followed. Not through dramatic collapse, not through one final defeat, but through a series of quiet withdrawals. Flags came down, administrations packed up, responsibility was handed over. The empire didn't fall in flames, it faded. And with it, the pound changed. Once the world's reserve currency, it became a regional one. Britain survived. Its institutions survived. Its culture survived. Its people survived. But the empire did not, and it never returned. Then came the Soviet Union. Different ideology, different system, same destination. A superpower with nuclear weapons, space technology, a massive military presence. From the outside, it looked unbreakable. But inside, the economy no longer worked. Factories produced goods no one wanted. Quantity mattered more than quality. Innovation stalled. Agriculture failed. Despite vast land and resources, the system couldn't feed itself. Technology fell behind. Decades behind. And the currency told the truth. The ruble was trusted by no one. It couldn't be exchanged freely. It couldn't be used globally. Even Soviet citizens preferred foreign currency when they could get it. Oil and gold kept the system alive, until they didn't. When oil prices fell, the illusion collapsed. When the Berlin Wall fell, the collapse accelerated. Control disappeared almost overnight. 900 days later, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. No invasion, no final battle, no dramatic ending. Just economic failure. A superpower dissolved by exhaustion. Now, look at the United States. Military bases across the world. Commitments on every continent. The most expensive military in human history. A currency created without limit. Debt measured in tens of trillions. Production outsourced. Supply chains fragile. A society losing trust in its own institutions. None of these things alone cause collapse. History is very clear about that. But together, they always have. Spain believed it was different. Britain believed it was different. The Soviet Union believed it was different. Each one told itself the same story. Each one trusted its power, its currency, its rules. Every empire says the same thing near the end. This time is different. History disagrees, because history doesn't care about confidence. It doesn't care about belief. It doesn't care about intention. It cares about limits. And when those limits are crossed, collapse isn't slow. It's sudden. The answers aren't hidden in the future. They're written in the past. And right now, we're still inside the story. And this is the part that makes people uncomfortable, because collapse never announces itself. It doesn't arrive with sirens or headlines, and it doesn't look dramatic at first. It looks like normal life, just slightly worse than yesterday. A little more debt, a little less trust, a little more pressure, until one day, the system reaches a limit it can no longer cross. And when that moment comes, there is no debate, no committee, and no time to prepare. History doesn't ask for permission. It simply moves on. And the people who survive are never the ones who believed it couldn't happen. They're the ones who saw it coming. If this video gave you a new perspective, consider subscribing. History is full of answers.